All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 7. This is Boulder Uphill, and I'm your host, Brian Whitehill. And next to me, I have my friend Rachel Murray. And usually I record an intro separately, but I just told Rachel that I'm going to be talking about her while she's here, and just to pretend like it's not happening that way, but it is. So Rachel is a friend of mine from college that I actually didn't hang out with in college, but we kind of became better friends post-college once we both moved to New York City. Anyway, we'll get to that, but getting ahead of myself. But Rachel is an actor, writer, singer, overall creative living in Los Angeles and previously New York City. And we were just talking a lot about the changing landscape and just everything going on in the arts and in the world. And so there's a lot to touch on today. And I think that's all the intro we're going to do right now. So without it being all gross and official, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's my first time in the medium.
Oh, is it really? You've never been. Wow, I'm honored.
Yeah.
You're actually the like the guinea pig of like what it'll be like having a real guest. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because Jared was like, that was at his place and it was a whole other setup, but I knew that at some point I was going to have to figure out how to do it in my own space. Mm-hmm. So you just witnessed the first half hour of me figuring it all out.
Yeah.
So thanks for dealing with that.
It's an honor to watch.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, we already touched on it all, but like, where are you as an artist with all this? And there's also stuff I want to talk about too, because we haven't gotten to talk too much about the state of the short film that you made that I still want to see, but then you said that there's like a private Vimeo link, but you're not done with the audio or something like that.
Yeah, it's now done.
Okay. Yeah. Well, actually talk about that first. Yeah. Okay.
Really?
No, you don't want to talk about that?
It seems frivolous to be talking about like my little creative projects right now.
Well, wherever you feel like you are right now, like as a person / artist, you know?
Yes. It's been really weird. Well, I feel like when the pandemic hit, and we were quarantined and the stay-at-home order was in place, my world became very like micro, and I was worried about my well-being and my life and my future and my career and even just like survival. But then when Ahmaud Arbery was killed and then George Floyd was killed and then we found out Breonna Taylor had been killed, then I really felt things like shift within me to a more like macro place of like, holy shit, the world is so much bigger than me. And like, there's so much that I have always cared about peripherally, but I've never taken it upon myself to actually try and fix. I always kind of felt like it was someone else's problem to fix. Like, what power do I have? But now I feel like I feel more inspired to actually like educate myself and speak up and try to have some impact on, like, I want to be more involved with my community in a hands-on way and like contribute to the kind of society I want to see. And that's kind of like, I've been shifting away from like my career and my art. Like, who gives a shit about that right now? Like, who are we? We as artists have a responsibility to like shape society and shape people's views and what we shine light on. And I don't know, I just feel like that's a big thing that's been missing from my life in terms of like being fulfilled as a person. Like, having an amazing career wouldn't be ultimately fulfilling for me. And I'm just realizing like I need to like add that layer into my life of I don't know, activism and
Well, like, you mean like only having a successful career or whatever. That should not be the only fulfilling thing in someone's life, you know?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
for some people it is.
Yeah.
But I think
yeah.
for me, I've never been completely fulfilled in life. And you always think like, oh, it's because I'm not in love or like I'm not rich and famous. But I think now I have the insight into myself that I do care about these big issues and being in a great romantic relationship and having a stable career, like that's not enough for me as a person. So there was this cognitive dissonance of like, I'm not doing enough to kind of like quell that anger in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something I want to like focus on or add into my life.
Totally. Yeah.
That I think would ultimately like make me stronger as an artist and as a creative. And
yeah, I like when I was talking to Andre and Cliff and other friends of mine that are artists, that shift actually has happened with a lot more people than I realized, and it's actually encouraging because there was a shift where, I mean, even for me, it was once you realize that our industry is on pause, right, because of the pandemic and everything like that, and we had time to focus on other things, and then obviously societal issues are brought up into the forefront. We realize all the things that we just skip past on a daily basis because we're so focused on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and we're trying to survive. Like,
yeah. I mean, trying to survive financially. It's like living in a big city and not even just like that constant rat race. So, I mean, similar for me, where once all this hit and the protests began and all that stuff, I was like, these are things that I have just not acknowledged because they've never been put directly in front of me. And even when they have been, it's momentary, you know, and then it's kind of like, all right, on to the next thing. Or, you know, you see a horrible instance of police brutality on a video and you go, that's terrible. And then that's gone out of the news cycle. And then
it's weird.
It's
weird how it feels different on such like a personal level.
Yeah.
Like I know that it feels different than any other time this shit has happened.
Yeah.
Just inside of myself, I feel that, and I feel that I'm not gonna like let it go. And so I can only believe that that's the case with a lot of people, which gives me some hope. But
yeah. And it also shows you, like, not that everybody has to be plastering it all over social media, like every issue they care about and everything like that, but you can definitely start to see the difference in demeanors, whether it's in person or online, like what people care about and what people are advertising. And you see, it's like you use the word frivolous. Did you use the word? Yeah. It's like, you see
that word.
Yeah, a great word. But you see that type of stuff shared online and you're like, it's like, I remember at the very top of all the big protests, there were still a few people that stuck out like sore thumbs.
Influencing.
Because
still be influencing.
Yeah. And it's like, guys, like, right, you're advertising your skincare right now, or like you're sharing boomerangs of you at the beach in the middle, like the red hot middle of all these protests. Yeah. This is what you're choosing to share. So it's interesting. You start to see, not saying that like that's a reason why you should cut people out of your life.
No,
but
people's priorities are different, and that's fine. But
yeah. So
it's really yeah. Changed how I see some people and the respect I have for others. And
that's a whole other story too, of like dealing with people online and like different viewpoints right now. That was, I mean, something I touched on with Andre and Cliff. Was that last week? I don't know. 2 weeks ago. Just about how many different viewpoints there are and the importance of conversation. But a lot of people online like they're not willing to have conversations on either side. No. It's just like people yelling, hoping the other person understands where they're coming from.
I've dropped a couple shame bombs on Facebook.
Yeah. Like, it's real though. So
I'm like, this is what I know I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If no one else is going to do it, someone's got to call them out. Someone's got to check them. Even if they don't change their opinions. I want them to.
Yeah. And I forget who I was talking to the other day. It's not even necessarily about, with the level of activism. I've found that some like really strong, powerful moments that I've heard of and witnessed myself, like whether it's in my own personal life or other people's, comes from like the quiet education, like with a family member or like, like a few friends have told me that I actually had to have a talk and like I explained it as calmly as I could. And we had a good conversation about it. Like those, I think, make just as big of an impact because it's on the ground floor as opposed to plastering everything online. So
I moved back in with my mom
Yeah.
in the beginning of June.
Yeah.
And I'm from a conservative family in South Orange County.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
And
same.
my mom ideologically is a like compassionate person. And if I'm like outing my mom publicly, but when George Floyd was killed, like it was strange because I feared it coming up. And then when it did, she was on the same page as me, surprisingly. Not surprisingly, but I mean.
No, I see what you're saying though. Just because like I think with things like that, you don't know if it'll turn political before it's handled on like an empathy level, like
yes. And I think her first instinct is always empathy, but then these other family members kind of saturate her mind, and then she can kind of lean a different way. And I'm like, but your instinct was correct. Yeah. And if you just fucking follow my lead, I'll show you the way, girlfriend. Yeah. But so, it's so hard and weird, but I don't know. What was my point?
Like handling things on the ground level in terms of just like interactions and with family members and stuff like that. An example that I have too is even like I like with the the level of heightenedness, whatever, like heightened panic. There you go. Sure.
The height of it.
Yeah, the height of the panic and everything like that. You don't know how different people are handling it. So when I saw some family members a week ago, I was chatting with different ones separately, and some are on very different pages. So it's one of those things where you just kind of have to like go in with a level of sensitivity and see where everybody's at. And then, because like if I say that, I felt a certain way about wearing masks here, and then I dealt with a family member that had the opposite view, like I'm not going to scream at him, but that's what I mean is like on that ground floor, hopefully the two parties can like have that type of conversation and like have it calmly, but who knows anymore?
I don't know. Things are so polarized now.
Yeah.
There's no real middle ground. It's like black and white. Are you wearing a mask or aren't you? You're not like, you can't partially wear a mask right now. Like there's no middle ground.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, that's also like such a deep dive too, because like my family extended and immediate, it's such a wide variety of different viewpoints, which I think is healthy. But it's I think with like so many polarizing topics right now, it's probably just what I noticed when I saw other family members for my birthday. It was like those topics didn't even come up.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And wow, they are really going for it up there. Good God. Well, next time we'll have to like, because I want to like deep dive on, for the listeners who don't know anything about it. Rachel like wrote her own short film and then filmed it, and it's in the whole like.
I could talk about it.
Yeah, well, but I don't want you to feel like I'm forcing you to talk about it.
No, I just wanted to disclaim.
Totally, yeah.
I wanted to get
that there are, I think that probably for the next,
everyone knows that.
yeah, and also for like the foreseeable future with my episodes, anytime I'm because I plan on having other artists from other varying degrees of the industry, that's gonna come up, especially people who live in LA and New York. Like these things are gonna come up, and I think that no matter what, there's now the underlying notion and knowledge that more important things are happening.
Yes. So now I feel better about
Yeah,
talking about myself.
Yeah, well, because it's also I do want to touch on how, like you were saying, that with the COVID stuff happening, like you had to move out of your place in Hollywood and with all the unemployment stuff. So like there are important things to touch on with that
Yeah.
are being affected by the world that then affect your art,
Yeah.
and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah. But
luckily I have a parent who could
Yeah.
take me in, and
Yeah.
I wasn't
yeah,
on
totally.
the street like a lot of people are right now.
Yeah, and that was that I was addressing that like in the earlier episodes too, because I'm lucky enough to have family in Orange County that I was able to escape LA to go hang out with for 2 months.
I think I've had to check myself so much on like just being grateful for what I do have, because I'm like, I've been screwed by the EDD and haven't gotten unemployment, and then I had to lose my apartment and move back in with my mom, and I'm 27 and I feel shitty about where I am currently. But so I feel like I naturally lean into like self-pity, and I'm really trying to work on that and be like, you are fine and you have a lot more at your disposal than a lot of fucking people.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
so
I mean, keeping that stuff in perspective is really important, because it's so easy to fall down the pit of despair right now too, just because with everything being so uncertain, and like we're trying to pace ourselves for a marathon that like has no end. It's very bizarre, but also at the same time, like problems are problems, and people are allowed to feel how they feel, so it's in this weird time too, because I feel that way too, where I'm like, I was just telling you how like once the CARES Act is done for me at the end of July, I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do for a job, and this and this, and like I'm allowed to have those worries, and also recognize that like there are people out there with significantly higher stakes of worries, and I'm like, they're really going. What time? Maybe they're back from work. I don't know. Well, actually, you know what? Because I wanted to touch on this, how you were in New York. Like you and I kind of had the same schedule.
Yeah, we both moved to New York in the same week. Yeah, and we both moved out of New York in the same week or two.
Weeks. Yeah, so weird.
So, but we were like living like kind of parallel storylines and never really intersected until except it was like bookends on our experience.
Well, because you had for listeners who don't know the backstory, which is probably most people, you and I went to Cal State Fullerton, but then you left a couple years before me, right? To come to LA.
Yeah, okay. I did 2 years. I did 2 years, and then when I didn't get into the BFA program, I was like, "Fuck this! I hated it here anyway. I'm not gonna get my bachelor's in my BA
or whatever the general
Bachelor
one.
of Art,
BA.
Theater arts.
I think the when it wasn't the BFA in whatever acting or musical theater, I think people then chose the BA.
I went from musical theater to the acting BFA, and I didn't. Which
I kind of wish I had done.
Yeah, but I didn't make it, and then so I was like, you know what? This school has broken me, my little 18, 19-year-old self, and I moved to LA, and felt better and felt more like I felt like the real world was nicer to me than that school and the faculty there. Because I just never found my place in that school. I didn't like have great friends and
I was just talking to my friend yesterday who also went to that school and might have left a year before. He did leave it a couple years before like my class's year. But not to like talk shit on it, but he was saying similar things. He was like, I've talked to people from a variety of programs, and for some reason, the way that system was set up was like truly to pit people against each other in a time when we're like just leaving high school. And
we were children.
Yeah.
And at the time you don't feel like a kid, but looking back, I'm like, I was straight out of my like sort of traumatic childhood and put into another traumatic environment where the teachers made me feel like shit about myself as an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like still peeling those scars away from those 2 years there.
Yeah.
But it was just not a good place for me to like incubate as a performer, and it kind of killed a lot of potential confidence and potential like talent. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like the people who did really well there just came in confident, had great parents and great fucking lives, and like we're like, I'm ready to be on Broadway. And then the faculty was like, great, you're the people we want.
Yeah.
You are a bitch and you can't sing what I want you to sing good.
Or how I want you to sing. Or,
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, there was one class where we had to do typecasting.
Oh, I remember.
And you have to, one by one, my literal nightmare as like a shy, socially anxious, insecure human, walk one by one in front of the class and stand there. And the class would write down, does she lead with her head, her chest, or her hips?
Yeah.
And this is what each of those means and what kind of character she can play. And when you look at her in the face, what characteristics do you see? And I remember the teacher, like on my little one sheet of everything I wrote down, starred like bitchy, cold. And I was like, okay. And she told me I didn't have the personality to play the character from Bye Bye Birdie. I don't remember. Yeah. I don't even like musicals that much. I was like in this program. I was like, why am I here?
I get it though. Yeah.
Said really hurtful, stifling, stunting things to me that I believed and internalized because I didn't have the wherewithal or the life experience to have that perspective, like modulation. So that was terrible.
Yeah, you like internalize
so much.
Because also when you're just that fresh out of high school, you are, a sponge for new opinions about yourself.
And you think college is the real world. You're like, now I've made it to what life is like. And this lady, this professor told me that I will amount to nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually heard similar things from other women as well. Like that.
Oh yeah. Real misogynistic undertones there, like from the women, which is a common thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I even look at like that. I had to do the same typecasting thing, and I
strutted your little tush.
But then I got like the All-American Boy Next Door and like that type of stuff, and so I left that being like, oh, cool, and I didn't even think about the fact that like what that exercise, what it actually.
If you hear what you don't want to hear, the effect that has on you.
Yeah, because and also especially when you are building your confidence and someone is like
limiting you,
or
like,
knowing or unknowingly,
and they don't even know me. Like she doesn't know my personality. I'm a weirdo.
And also, it's acting for a reason. So just because whoever saw you and was like, oh, bitchy, like, how is that? What? Like, that's so interesting.
So she was like, you can't play this character in Legally Blonde. You have to play whatever. I don't know. The jump roping one.
Brooke.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There was also, it's so funny. I had a Zoom call with my class like maybe 3 months ago, and there's a lot of stories to unpack there. And another one was like, did you guys ever do bullshit where like we had to have the lyrics of our song. Actually, we already knew them.
Oh, they yelled bullshit when they didn't believe you're acting.
So you recite the lyrics of your song as a monologue.
Oh, that's
hilarious. Yeah, and then
bad.
and then if the TAs didn't believe you, mind you, the TAs being people 2 years above you who all of a sudden like have power over you.
One of whom
class.
I was dating and would break up with me and cheat on me regularly, and then I'd have to see him at 9 a.m. at musical theater class and perform in front of him with my puffy ass. Like, I had been crying all night and I'd have to perform, and then the teacher would be like, well, that wasn't good. And I'm
God.
and then the TAs would give you feedback too. So like to my face,
You're like watching your ex
oh
give
my
you-
God, it was all
What a
so
life.
bad.
I know. Yeah. It's just like incestuous and all that. Yeah. So we're out of there now.
Yeah.
So
Just reliving it
yeah.
quickly.
Well, so thankfully you left and then came right to LA and kind of like found a place for yourself here.
Yeah, I found like a group of people who I liked and who were creative.
Yeah.
And so that was nice and validating. And then
Because I remember you and I chatted about it briefly, but what was the driving factor for you to relocate from LA to New York? Because like we had said, we were on a weirdly similar schedule. Because when I was done with school May of 2015, then that following September was when I moved, and then you moved that September as well, or like maybe just a few days before me.
September 1st.
Yeah. Oh yeah, same here. So wow. Yeah, same day. What was the driving?
I was 22 and I'd been in LA for a couple years, and I think I'd just gotten out of a relationship and was feeling restless. And I mean, I'm prone to like depression and anxiety, and I have a tendency to make kind of like snap decisions and risky moves just because I'm like, whatever, fuck the consequences. I feel like moving. I feel like getting out of here.
Yeah.
And I'd been in this tiny bubble of Orange County and then the little bit bigger of a bubble of LA, and felt like I needed to see more of the world. And of course, New York was always this place where I visited when I was 14, and I would like walk the streets and like see these adults like just living their lives there and going to coffee shops and whatever. And I just really like projected this like freedom and independence and like just building my own life. And I associated it with New York. And so I felt more of an itch to do it, and finally made the move.
Yeah. That's funny you say that too, because I actually kind of viewed New York in the same way, like the few times that I'd visited, and also the way that I felt after being there and establishing myself there felt very separate. It was like, oh wow, like I am actually building my life like on my own. It's like my own little corner, and here I am doing it, you know. And New York is definitely a conduit for that. Is conduit the right word? I don't know if it's the right word for that.
It's a canvas for
Yeah, it's a canvas. Yeah, New York is a canvas.
your alter ego.
Yeah, sure. Well, and also, but like you had said, you know, with the feeling like you had been in a bubble in California, that's like furthest place to get away from a bubble. Yeah. Yeah. Did you find
what I was looking for?
Yeah. Were you fulfilled by going there? But no. Did you find like the type of art that you were looking for, like the differences that you wanted, and then it felt like time to come back, or like how was that transition?
I never was able to immerse myself in anything artistic there. Like I'd done some acting jobs and commercial work, and then most of the time was just working and trying to survive. And then I also didn't really find my group of creative people and my community there. And I found a lot of distractions from doing what I actually wanted to do.
Okay.
But And like I took some UCB classes and met some funny, cool people there, but I don't know, it just felt so isolating the whole time, and like I didn't have a community, which I had taken for granted.
Totally.
Having had that in Los Angeles. So it just wore on me, and then I ended up in a relationship which kept me there for a while longer. But that was also so removed, like his world was so removed from where I wanted to be. And I'm kind of a codependent person, I guess. So I'll kind of adapt to your life, and like, I'm super easy, and like, I like shit you like, and didn't forge my own path, I guess.
Yeah.
And then finally felt like, I feel like it's a little late to establish a community and a career here. And like, when I have people in LA who are like selling screenplays and doing stand-up and making stuff and doing music, like everything I wanted to do. So I just had this big FOMO for a while, and that came to a breaking point too. So I came back.
Yeah. That kind of was. It's funny because I weirdly found my community over there, although it was partially because I got very lucky with my living situation, where I just happened to move into like an apartment full of artists, and I was like, whoa. And then like people left, and then my other close friends came in, and it just became like this giant party, and I was like, yeah, like I'm living with like I love coming home. Like I would come back from acting class, and like Andre's doors open and his lights are all different colors, and he'd be sitting in there, and like he'd be like, "How was class?" And like I chat with him, and then Cliff comes in, and then Austin comes in. We all just chat, and so like I did really find my community there. But on the level that you were talking about with like the work that you want to be doing, it was a similar thing where I started realizing like, oh, so and so's doing this in LA, and like asked me to be a part of it, and like my cousin's doing this, and he told me that if I was there right now, like he could have been using me for that. And then also, and having family over here too. But it's hard when that disconnect starts, when you start realizing that the disconnect is there, because then you're like,
it only gets bigger once it like worms its way into your brain. It only
it took it was not an overnight thing, but it took me finally just deciding one night, like I've been feeling this way for months now. I was even trying to put it off, like in December, before I moved here in May of 2019. That December, I was like, I think I'd written down, I was like, I think that in the next few years I'll probably go back to LA, and like it just kind of kept getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
And then you realize like, oh, it's
now or never, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, that's great that like you realize that sooner rather than later. And it also kind of coincided with a relationship ending in a way, or like all snowballed into that anyway, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like every one of these is just like,
no, but I
don't have a boyfriend. I gotta move.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that like definitely was a pushing force for me to move to New York was similar to what you had said. With like, I think that with anything ending, it encourages you to look for new beginnings. And with somewhere like New York being so far from where you grew up, it's like, all right, why not reinvent myself?
And I had told him, he's the kind of person who was like, I have an established career and now I need wife and mother to my children. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well,
I have
see, I don't see myself settling down here, hauling a fucking infant onto the subway.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
While dudes are pooping on it.
Yeah.
Isn't my idea of a future. Mm-mm. And so he knew it was very clear to him that I was eventually going to move back to California.
Okay.
So once I got to a breaking point with that relationship, it was also like, and you know what, New York, you too, asshole. Yeah. Like, I'm down with you too.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything. Thanks for the lessons.
Totally.
But it was just all compounded into like, I'm miserable and I need to get back to some sort of, I need to start planting roots somewhere instead of just floating around and not being happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that's why anyone who has the willingness and the means to try New York, I think that's why it's so important too. Like, especially if you're pursuing that type of art,
Yeah,
you know,
I would do it again because
totally.
Oh my God, like.
Well, you are who you are now because of
Yes,
all of that, those
yes.
years in New York City. And I feel the same way. Like I am very, very, because I look back and I think, oh God, like why did I quote unquote waste time in New York when I ultimately ended up back in LA? But then I look and I'm like,
I would have no stories.
yeah,
Well, I'd have
but like,
just the same stuff here,
but
really.
you would have like, now you're not like extra cultured, but you just have,
I'm so much more woke after.
oh my God. Yeah. Now that you've lived in New York, but you know what I mean? Like
Different people,
Totally.
different immigrants from different places are the majority there than they are here. And
Yeah.
like, I worked with a lot of people from different backgrounds and like, just, I don't know, just, yeah, learning that the world is bigger than you.
Totally.
Working with someone from like, oh my God, what's the place called? I'm going to sound stupid. No. Whatever. Somewhere where people are working 70 hours a week and sending money back to their families in another country, and just like getting to work with them all the time and laugh with them. And like, it doesn't really happen in California.
Mm-hmm. No, and I definitely will say, I mean, objectively, but I'm pretty sure it's just a known fact that like New York is so much more of a melting pot than this city / this state, and it's like
it's much less segregated in terms of population.
And it's just there's like you were saying, like I worked with similar people where it's like, holy crap, you are, and also just hearing everybody's stories really opened me up. Whereas like here, you very much are in a bubble in terms of like your transport and all that. And it's like very just separate stuff, you know, going on all the time. Whereas like when you're conjoined, it's like you could be leaving work at the same time as someone else. And then on the way to the subway, you get to hear like things that you didn't get to talk to on your shift and stuff like that. So I mean, I will forever like tell people how much I learned in New York City, which is why I'm so glad that I was there.
Yeah.
And I do think that for me, what kept me there really was the people. I felt for a long time, and don't get me wrong, I love theater, and I know you do too, because I mean you did a play over there as well, and I love theater, but I felt the theater culture was just not fitting me as a person. But
that was me agreeing with myself. I'm like, you don't belong.
So for me, it was like, oh wow, I'm so excited because I booked a tour and I got to experience that, and the show was very fun. But then when I got back, and that was the season where like every theater in America was doing Mamma Mia, I was like, this is what we, all right.
Just regurgitating.
Yeah, I was like, for theater artists to work, like they have to do the same shows. And like someone who's done, and I know people who have done it, someone who's done Mamma Mia like 6 times, they keep accepting it because it's work. Yeah. And so I start, and no knocks to them. If you love theater that much to where you do that, all the kudos in the world to you. But I just started realizing like, this just isn't right for me right now.
Yeah.
But my people were keeping me there for sure.
Yeah.
So then I just had to start realizing like, damn, unfortunately this disconnect is starting to where the work's not keeping me here, but the people are. And you can't necessarily stay somewhere just because you love, you know, the community. You know, it's like if the work's not fulfilling you, or like you're not finding what you're looking for.
Yeah. Have you found that in LA yet?
I have not.
Oh.
No.
I mean, it's only been a year.
No, I know. And that's why I'm not, I've stopped comparing New York and LA because it's just, you can't really. But also it was hard coming back, just knowing what a solid foundation of people I had gathered there, and all from different places. Like when I left here, everyone that I knew for the most part was from California. But like over there, it's like people from Delaware, people from Philly, people from
Delaware,
from Missouri, you know, and like just so many different walks of life in different states. So it's I haven't found. I'm still I'm still figuring out what the landscape is even like here in terms of art. You know, New York
Yeah.
was, I mean, and you know just as well as I do, like, I loved the idea that you could go see a show and then it's like you're right there and you're watching like beautiful acting and beautiful storytelling and like powerful things. And it was so accessible.
Yeah.
But I haven't found that here. And also, I had a great acting class while I was over there that I loved the community there.
Me too.
And I haven't joined an acting class here yet.
Me
So
neither.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so
And I don't know when I will be able to, and that's
I don't know when whenever things open up. So that's why it's also, you can't even compare right now because of everything going on. There's just
right. And it's almost like I have no memory. I'm like, I don't remember what life was like or will be like.
Yeah. So I do have hope that I'll be able to find like-minded people here regardless. I know that that's possible. I have a few friends here and like their extended friend groups, not fully my style of people. So I don't see like me joining any people's friend groups.
Right.
You know, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, what I loved about the theater community is that I could have a friend from acting class and they'd be like, hey, me and some people are going to a bar here, or we're hanging out at someone's apartment. And I could show up and it was just the most welcoming group of people. And it was like, I immediately felt at home because theater people in general are like usually more outgoing, but also just like open to newcomers and like, what's your story?
Yeah.
The groups that have been around here, for me at least, I've just walked in and it's no questions asked and kind of just like, oh, hey guys, this is Brian. Hey, I'm just like, hey guys. And then like,
well, you just need to like meet nerdier people, I think.
Yes, 100%. And I know that's going to happen. I technically had like, because I moved here into LA on June 1st and like X amount of months until quarantine hit. So it's like, and I was working a bunch.
That's not enough.
Yeah, nowhere near enough. So like, I have not by any means, I'm not giving up hope or anything like that. So there's just no comparison right now. I know that it'll happen though.
Yeah. And now you have this platform, which could be a conduit
for
a
canvas maybe.
Meeting other artists like, you know, once you go through all your roster of people you do know, you're gonna have to start reaching out. People want to be on this mic. Yeah,
and I've been very flattered by. I had people that I don't personally know, but they saw posts from their friends who know me or whatever. I had some people reach out and they were like, "I would love to be part of that." And I was like, "That's so cool."
Friends.
Yeah, because it's like for me, it's just exciting that. There are people like wanting to share their stories and like talk about their art.
And this is such a good way to build a community.
Yeah. That's why I don't focus too much on listenership or viewership. And there's like actually not a bad amount of listeners. It's exciting. No. The ones that when I have guests, there's more. But still, like even if a solo episode of mine only gets, I
watched your solo episode.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, it's like if it gets like 65 people listening, that's 65 people who chose to listen to me, and I'm not even 10 episodes in.
Yeah.
So
you're on the right track.
Hey, thanks.
You got what it takes.
Thank you. But yeah, it is that's kind of what that was a driving factor for this, is like building a community of sorts, and even if it's like a podcast interview type thing, I now have spent an hour and a half and more with the setup and everything with someone that I didn't previously know. And I heard their stories. And then it's also like, are we able to collaborate at any point in the future? Maybe. So yeah. So
I think it's going to be great for you.
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of covered New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you came back, which is, that was what was so funny, is that I remember you and I hung out before you came back.
And we were like, wait,
we're like,
I want to leave.
Yeah. When did you come back to LA? I forget which.
May 1st.
Okay.
2019.
Okay. Yeah. So a few days before me, because I came back May 5th.
Yeah. Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah. I think I had a couple drinks on the plane. It was a little bit of. It was like
they give everyone sombreros.
Yeah. Oh my God, no. That would have been horrible. Yeah. I mean, is there any? you obviously are probably glad you came back, but has there been any like positive things that have like reaffirmed your choice to come back?
Yes, and then it was all stripped away from me.
I know.
No,
but it's still possible.
Yes, like reconnecting with all my friends and this circle that has grown while in my absence. Has been really cool, and I've like made music with new friends and collaborated like on my short film. I had my friends help me, and it just feels like I am where I'm supposed to be. And if I just fucking dedicate myself and stay on this path and try to learn to be self-disciplined and like I can really grow my roots here. So that's what I plan on doing again.
Yeah,
as soon as I can.
The self-discipline stuff. I've talked with a few people about it.
Have you on this podcast?
Not on this podcast. No. I saved that for right now.
That's an important. That's like my biggest hurdle in life and my career.
Yeah. Well,
something that does not come naturally to me.
It's same here, and I wrote this down a long time ago. I started getting in this mode of, because I was lucky enough that the opportunities came to me. I don't want to say easily because I still had to work for them, but they came to me without too much resistance in New York. So like I booked I told myself, I was like, I'm never going to be the person getting up at 4 a.m. to go to these non-union calls. I will never be that person.
And that's how you booked it?
No. But then one day I was. No. I just was like, I refuse. I can't do it. Especially in wintertime. I guess I'm not as disciplined as the people like pounding the pavement in New York City.
No, I did it a couple times, and my fragile little voice, if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, my voice is like this. You try to hit that high note and it cracks. So I'm like, why am I even auditioning? Because I can't sing when I get up at 4 a.m.
And depending on the weather, if it's colder.
Awful.
Yeah. So I had just told myself that. So, I mean, long story short, I went to a few things. I had an agent at the time, and then I went to an open call for the national tour of Rent, and then I got called back like months later for the role of Roger, and I was all stoked about the callback. That didn't happen, but then a few days later, I looked up the casting, and I saw that they were also casting Mamma Mia. I emailed them. I was like, "You just saw me 3 times for the role of Roger," because I was called back multiple times. I was like, "You just saw me for Roger. I would love to come in for Mamma Mia." They were like, "Great, here we got a spot for you open at 10 a.m. You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to blah blah blah." I was like, "Cool." And then I showed up, immediate callback, and then like within a few days, I had booked Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
So then, because of that,
And that was how long into your?
I was since I moved to New York.
Moved to New York.
That was Rents. So I moved to New York September 1st, 2015. Rent callback stuff was maybe April or so.
Okay.
So what?
Pretty quickly.
September, October, November, December, January,
7
February.
months.
Yeah. And and like, getting acclimated with the city and all that stuff and like learning the landscape. But because that happened, just kind of like falling in place, like me emailing and being like, great, I never had to show up to a ridiculously packed call for this, because there were packed calls. I passed by like giant mail open calls that I would have had to sit in. So after tour, I came back kind of like with this, I don't have to do that. And then I just happened to I landed another Mamma Mia, and that's when I started realizing like, oh wow, this is the regional theater stuff.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah. But so when it comes to self-discipline, I got caught up in this because things have come with little resistance in the past, I just have to be patient, and patience obviously is important, but
it's only half of the recipe.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to be the one driving.
Yeah.
You can't.
And I'm bad at that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like I don't believe in myself enough to sell myself to you.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny to hear you say that too, because I was just talking to Brandon yesterday, my friend Brandon, you know him as well. I was saying exactly what you just said. I was saying similar things to him about like how I've been working on my confidence and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, you have to understand, the general gist of the things we're talking about is like when someone sees you, they're going to assume that you are like a leader or like you are, you have the confidence even if you don't.
Based on what you look like.
Right.
And even with me, well, I'm like, people don't think that about me. People are like, oh, I was intimidated of you at first. And I'm like, I'm the most fragile, insecure, self-loathing person.
See, but like
and I feel like I look like a little like, I don't know. It's so weird how our perceptions are so
because
dumb and wrong.
From an outside perspective, like I remember first hanging out with you when we first got to New York, and I was like nervous because you and I had never hung out before, and I was like, you would always,
bitch.
Well, no, you
like
no.
they said at Cal State Fullerton after that typecasting lesson.
Never. But I think I'd seen you around school before, and obviously because I had also heard this about myself too. Like I was fairly quiet in the halls, and like I kind of kept to myself and all that stuff. So I think I'd caught sight of you a few times, and just was like, oh, like that quiet intimidation of like, oh, they're doing their own thing, and like, just like based on visuals, it's like, oh,
we paint a whole story that's not even there.
But see, it's interesting you say, all that stuff about yourself, because from an outside perspective, like that doesn't come off at all. And
I know, and then I shatter the image that could help me by being too honest with people. Well, I'm so insecure. They're like, shut up, we wouldn't have known that.
Well, and like selling yourself with that confident image.
But that feels false to me. And I'm like, I want to be myself, and I want to be transparent even about my shortcomings. I know. About myself.
But
why doesn't it work?
Don't apologize.
No, I know.
Brandon gave me shit because there was this one selfie that I posted maybe 2 months. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, but there's a point to it. Okay. I posted this selfie like 2 months ago. And because I don't feel when I post a selfie or a photo where I feel like I look good, I hate self-indulgence. So I never want to be like, give one of those minimal captions like, feeling myself today, or like, I hate that stuff. Or like, what about you guys? What are you guys up to? Or like, how's your Friday? Like all that bullshit. I hate that. So my caption for it was like, hey guys, it was essentially just been like, still a little self-conscious from like my holiday eating and blah, blah, but I'm feeling all right today. It was this whole thing. And Brandon comments on it being like, Brian, just post a picture. Yeah. Just shut up. And then we talked about it yesterday.
No one thinks it's cute. How much you don't believe in yourself.
So in my head, being transparent makes me more approachable. But not always. But it's
off-putting because then it's the other person's responsibility to like quell your insecurities, which is such a burden. Yep. So annoying.
Yep. So it's off-putting. There's a balance to find there for sure.
Yeah.
But the quantifying and the apologizing before someone even has a chance to speak, it doesn't help. So like that's what I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
Being comfortable in like my own image and what I bring to the table, even if it's just like with this podcast, I'm like, no one's going to watch, no one's going to listen. Why would anyone care what I have to say? But it's like, put it out there, own it. And then people will like that you were passionate about what you're passionate about. So like in your case, I see you and I see someone who like, I would never in 1,000 years think, oh, that woman has difficulty selling herself because of your ideas, and because I'm not trying to like shower you with compliments, but because of your ideas and because of your passions and the things you're interested in, and like the way you look and the way you carry yourself and take care of yourself, I would never guess those things. So it's like, don't lead with the transparency of like, hey, before you say anything, I'm insecure. Ooh, so like,
I did that yesterday.
Really?
During a Zoom audition.
Really?
So stupid. It was for this guy is directing. We like starred in a play together like 7 years ago. And literally right off the bat, I was like, just so you know, I don't think I'm right for this part. No. And he was like, well, you don't have to do this. And I was like, no, I just wanted to tell you, like. And then I did it, and he was like, you don't have anything to worry about. That was awesome. But you could tell that his boner was dead for me.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
his directorial boner was dead for me.
Because it's like when you lead with the apology.
So dumb.
You know?
But it's because I'm so fragile
I
right
know.
now. I'm not my best self. I'm my worst self, some might argue right now.
Right now might not be the best time for auditions, that's for sure. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean,
I think it was because like I've worked with him before. I was like,
okay.
I can just tell him what I really think.
Yeah. Which, I mean, for all we know, he might have appreciated it, but I would say like general practice.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Of course, I'm in no position to be giving any advice, but just like from someone on the outside who, if like I was a casting director and you walked into a room, I would be like, wait, she's not, why is she leading with an apology?
It's so annoying.
Yeah. And but I do the same thing. It was my surroundings definitely that made me more self-conscious. But I look back and I'm like, if you were just like not giving a fuck what anyone thought and just like went in there, sang your song or did your scene or whatever, and then just pieced out because I was so worried about what everyone else thought and like, just the image that they would project onto me. I broke it before they had the chance, It's funny thinking of audition stuff. I should have Cliff on again at some point to tell this story, but I'm going to tell for him because it's a perfect example. He went in for Hamilton in New York, and oh God, I need him to tell it at some point. But it's so funny because he, I think he was brought in for a few roles, and they had him prepare like a shitload of songs, and I guess he messed up the words in like one of the songs and like finished the song was done, and he like literally grabbed his book and he's like, I'm so sorry and he backed out of the room, and they're like, no, it's fine, wait. And he literally like,
the audition wasn't over yet.
I mean, he had finished but didn't wait to hear anything, but because he was so caught up in that mess up, which like they probably didn't give a fuck about, he was like, I'm so sorry. He closes his book and he like backs out of the room, and like we've talked about that, and that's for sure a learning experience. But it's like, don't apologize and shatter that image before you even know what they're going to say, or,
I know.
Yeah.
But isn't it frustrating how some people are just born equipped with that confidence, and they can just fully focus on what they want to do, and nothing is hindering them except for the person judging them.
Yeah. I am very envious of people who like seemingly have like no holds barred and they can just like go balls to the wall. And it's like, even in college, you would see people in scenes and you'd be like, you just like don't give a shit, and you are just fully yourself and don't care what any of us think. And because of that, we're all so invested.
Yep. And then it makes you think, if that type of person exists and I'm like this, maybe I'm not meant to be doing this because I'm not naturally able to do it without any restrictions or like imposing doubts.
Yeah.
So maybe this isn't for me because I'm not that type of person.
Yeah, but then you hear from like people who are already successful how much they hated auditioning, how bad they were at auditioning.
Yeah.
And it's more about like when you're actually doing the work, if you can really show, like if you can get to a place where you are just like fully showing what you have, then it comes a point where like that speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Or it also just means that people like us who have more difficulty just not caring what people think and all that, it just takes that much more work to get to that place.
Yeah.
You know?
It's its own separate journey that eventually converges with your actual career journey. But
and I think that it takes a few years regardless. I think for everybody, especially post-college and a post vigorous program, you know, and like tough environment in that way. I think that it takes a few years to kind of find what you have to offer anyway.
Yes. It doesn't immediately translate into real life stuff.
Yeah. I mean, would you say that you are in a better place with that than you were, say,
oh my gosh. Yes.
Right. So that's already a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go into auditions where normally, I had this thing in college and high school where I had this psychosomatic response to being nervous for like a jury, so an acting jury where you had to do a scene and be judged on it.
Yeah.
Or even singing in class or a musical theater jury where the day of this very important event on which I would be judged for my abilities, I would wake up with no voice, completely lost voice, as if I was like ill.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought like, this is such a coincidence that every time I have to perform, I lose my voice. And I honestly thought it was a coincidence until it was like, oh my God, that's your own brain sabotaging you.
Yeah.
Because it was like on the day. And then I would get the response that coincided with that. It was like, your voice was this. And
Like, yeah, I know.
yeah. And it was just it was such like a terrible cycle of that. But after college, I was able to like, now I can perform. And I'm still scared. Like I did a play and we did like 6 or 8 shows. And I was so nervous every night. Like, this is going to be the day that I completely lose my voice. And it's just me and one other person on stage for 2 hours. And like, but it didn't happen. So I think I persevered and got over that thing.
And I'm sure that the environment helped too, because when you know you're in the presence of someone who is supporting you and you're supporting them on stage and like you're doing what you do, as opposed to, I mean, I can attest to the fact that those juries were stressful as hell. And like it's not even like an audition where like you go in now, say for a commercial or something, and it's 2 people behind a desk and it's like, they're just purely deciding who's right for what they need. Yeah. This was like purely like judgment.
And there were like 15 of them.
Yeah. And it was like, you would get notes about, I mean,
everything, just picking you apart.
Everything, yeah, and because all in the sake of like bettering you. Who knows?
They skipped such a crucial part of like raising artists, which is that you have to be utterly supportive and let someone's talents shine through and like nurture those talents before the judgment part. Exactly. The judgment kills any potential for growth as an artist. Yeah. When you have 18-year-olds in your care. So it's so irresponsible. And then anyone with any inkling of insecurity is going to get demolished.
And because when you are, a young artist doing your best to train, the people above you, like your, professors and your teachers and the workshops you attend and whatever, those people have to know that they have a significant impact. Like the things that they say. They have
to know.
Yeah, like they have to know that the things they say are going to hit and on a deeper level than a peer saying it or whoever, because you can shake that off. But when it's someone that you think, oh, well, they know a lot more than I do, and if they're pinpointing this and something's really wrong. So that's interesting you say that. I never even really thought about that, like the process of like nurturing talent before judging
it. Cut it off.
Yeah.
They already knew who they wanted in that program, like from day one.
Yeah.
And no one else really stood a chance.
Yeah. So it's like the people that might not have been in their sights were kind of just like not tossed aside. It might be the wrong word.
No, truly. But, okay. I feel like I didn't receive any like constructive criticism ever, that like it just wasn't. I just felt bad about myself.
Because you didn't fit into a specific mold.
Because I didn't have that bubbly personality, and I wasn't. I mean, it was just the wrong place for me anyway. I don't even like that many musicals. Yeah. Like, I don't know but I was like, I like to sing and dance and act. So I should be a musical theater major. Yeah. But like, there's like 3 musicals that I like.
I mean, me too. I definitely felt like a fish out of water in that world for sure. I'm glad that I was a part of it in New York, but like I couldn't join in on the conversations just praising all of Sondheim's work. Yeah. And I'd be like, I haven't seen that one. Yeah.
And then you think like, oh, I better start studying up. But then it's like, if you're not naturally drawn to learning all that stuff, what are you naturally inclined to immerse yourself in? Exactly. And then do that.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't force it. Well, and you're not going to be happy forcing it.
And that's why, like, it was interesting because the people at in a musical theater program, I was like the guy to be like, oh, have you seen this film?
Exactly.
And so looking back,
or
I now
comedy or TV or
looking back, I realized that my interest lied in those areas, and I never really connected it until I guess I indulged myself and entered that world of theater, which I do love. But then I was like, oh, actually, I can see now that the connections were not quite there, like they were for things that came naturally, you know. So maybe it takes stuff like that to point you. Yeah.
Yep. Again, I'm glad I went through that experience. And I mean, life is really a big experiment, and I feel like you just gotta try stuff and listen to yourself and keep trying different stuff. And
well, I mean, it's like what you said with the conversation about New York, you know, like you wouldn't have known. I think that with New York, at least for me personally, that was always something I knew if I didn't do it, I would have always regretted. Yeah,
absolutely.
Like if you don't leave when you feel the inclination to, you would look back and be like, I wonder what would have happened.
Yeah.
And now you know.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, after all this craziness, I would love to have another chat, like once we're kind of in more
settled in our new reality.
Yeah, because then also maybe you will things will be going with your short film and all that. Because I do want to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm just going to release it online at this point because the festivals are. I didn't make it to put it in a festival.
Right.
You know how like a lot of films are like, it is film student perfect and it is meant to win these awards.
Yeah.
My short is not like that at all. It was just something that I wrote from a natural place and was like, this would be fun and somewhat easy to do. So I did it. So it's not really meant to live in that world anyway. And since the world has gone to virtual existence, I feel like, why not?
Which actually weirdly is kind of reassuring about the film world anyway, because it's still, people can still be creating, which I think is exciting.
Yeah.
People might not be in the place for it right now, which is totally understandable, but just knowing that like in a few months, a few people can get together and like make a short film, you know, and put it online and blast it to their friends. And like, we can still be ingesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually, we talked about it before the podcast. I think that's probably going to be happening more in New York as well, just because with Broadway's now shut down until January, possibly longer come January, we'll see. I think that's going to be an interesting medium. It was already encouraged to be creating your own work. So I think that during and after this, that's going to be a little more, even more encouraged.
Because you don't have the option to wait for someone else to hire you as much.
Yeah. And I think that while self-tapes were on the rise for the film world, I think that they'll be the standard probably for a long while. Like purely running through all the things on virtual first. Yeah. And then if you get to a final spot, then it's like, okay, cool, come in, we can work
in the later stages, the audition process.
Yeah, it'll be interesting navigating all that after this.
Woo! Can't wait.
Yeah, we can have we'll have another conversation at some point about that. What is the name of your short film? So then whenever it's released, I can make a post about it or something like that.
It's called Closet Share.
Okay, Closet Share.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because then whenever you decide to release it down the line, I can put it up on any feeds and stuff.
Maybe I'll just coincide it with this when this drops.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so. We'll see.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can come to a close.
Okay.
So this has been episode 7. Thank you for being on episode 7.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of Boulder Uphill. I think that's it, everybody. So thank you for watching and listening. And this has been Rachel Murray and Brian Whitehill. I'll see you next time. And stay bold and keep climbing.